Thank you very much. Well, so I'm very glad today to take the floor and to participate in this great event. Let's go now in the wonderful and challenging world of investigations. As you know, ransomwares has been identified for years as a major threat because they generate huge impacts on companies. They can be used also to destabilize. So this threat has raised as a major one now. So what did we do at European level and especially at Europol level? First, I would explain you who we are. What are we doing against cybercrime and ransomwares? Because, well, we got some very good results in 2023, but it was not done overnight. We have a French proverb that says, Rome was not built in one day. And that's the same for us to work against ransomwares. You know, the Cybercrime Centre was created 10 years ago. We have now 100 people, colleagues, law enforcement officers working here who have a cybercrime background. We work on cyber intelligence, on operations, of course, on threat assessments, and support to operations. Concretely, colleagues from the member states come to us and they ask us support on complex and transborder investigations. We provide a full package of support. We will provide analysis support. We will provide forensic support and our support to trace people, attackers on cryptocurrencies as well. So that's the idea of Europol. That's why it is flexible, pragmatic, and successful in supporting the investigations of EU colleagues. We have also a dedicated cooperation group that is deeply involved on the fight against ransomwares. That's the Joint Cybercrime Action Task Force. Here you have 24 services present in this group. And the Irish colleagues are to join us very soon. It is pragmatic people, 24 officers work in an open space, same room, on daily basis. They do some deconfliction. They prepare the cases that will be developed during weeks, months, sometimes years, at judicial level. We have also a very good connection, partnership with the companies. Companies and the cooperation with the private sector is essential on cybercrime investigations. We have 3 cooperation groups, with one dedicated to cybersecurity companies, industries, one dedicated to banking sector, and another one dedicated to telco. They will support us on the operations, on the threat assessments, also capacity building, and also prevention awareness activities. We developed several years ago also More Ransom. More Ransom is a platform that will provide some decryption keys to victims. In Europol, we are also eager to ease the situation for victims, of course, because it is a whole dimension of cyber investigations. Here, each time we find some decryption keys after an operational cases, these decryption keys will be available for victims to decrypt their contents that have been attacked by a ransomware. We can now cover 180 families of ransomwares with this platform. And we have a partnership with 200 companies and public authorities in this project. Last but not least, the successes were achieved, also mainly speaking, thanks to a dedicated plan to fight against ransomwares. It was developed 2 years ago, the International Ransomware Response Model. It was developed between GCAT and EC3, the Cybercrime Centre of Europol. The idea was to provide another approach against the threat. At national level, colleagues are very involved on fighting against hackers and ransomware groups on cases. The idea was to promote another approach and to try to target the capacities of attackers. For example, the infrastructures. For example, the ransomware as a service organizations. Every capacities that helps the attackers to target companies and authorities. And that was developed in this plan, and we will see now the results that have started to come. Just to bring you in the atmosphere of investigation, imagine 6 hours in the morning, knock on the door, and so that's the beginning of the operation. Sometimes we may find some very particular atmosphere on the hacker side. I give you a slide about the reality of the Emotet gangs on the right. That was the headquarters of Emotet on the right. It's not recent, but it gives you also a good idea about the atmosphere in which investigators may perform searches on a daily basis. So now, let's talk now about the cases that we developed, that we performed on last year. Indeed, we made fight against ransomwares in various approaches. The first emblematic cases of 2023 was Hive ransomware, Operation Dawnbreaker. Hive was a major threat. And ransomware Hive targeted since 2018 large IT and oil multinationals. They targeted about 1,500 companies doing 100 million euro payments. It was used also against critical infrastructure, government, health, telco. They used the double extortion model. The affiliates got 80% of the ransom. The developers got 20% of the ransoms. That was the deal between them. So as to implement the ransomwares, they use vulnerabilities, or they try to get the control of the computer through phishing emails. And they were successful in bypassing the two factors of identification. Consequently, after the operation, the Hive infrastructures was shut down, and we provide decryption keys for victims in No More Ransom, and we managed to prevent 120 million of ransom in advance. Another case is Doppelpaymer ransom, Operation Parker. And it was developed and it was achieved on February. Doppelpaymer targeted since 2019 critical infrastructures and companies, especially in Germany, including health targets, hospital. You may remember the case with the University Hospital of Düsseldorf, for example. And about 40 million euros were paid in the US. This ransomware was enabled by Emotet malware, and it was linked with the Druidex family. Consequently, after the operations, we managed to take down the infra, and we performed various searches and identified some of the hackers also. Now, Operation Chip Mixer. Well, here, this case is interesting because it will bring you a good example on how we can fight against the ecosystem of ransomwares. Of course, ransomwares have a strong dimension linked with cryptocurrencies. And it's good for us also to try to trace back the guys behind the crypto flows, Chip Mixer was, since 2017, was involved in anonymizing the origin of funds. They have laundered about 2.7 billion euros from our assessments. And they laundered illegal proceeds from ransomware groups, Dharma, LockBIT, Zeppelin, for example. We performed the takedown of the infrastructures. 4 servers were seized, and we seized also 7 terabytes of data that we had to analyze. And we seized 44 million euros in Bitcoin. Another example is QuickBot, the QuickBot malware. Indeed, QuickBot malware was used to prepare a ransom attacks. We did it on September 2023. QuickBot, since 2007, targets about 700,000 computers in 30 countries, America, Africa, Asia as well. They targeted critical infra and companies. Indeed, once the malware was installed, they commit ransomware attacks as well. We performed the takedown of these large botnet infrastructures, and we seized 8 million euros in cryptocurrencies. Now, the 2 other cases are RAGNAR LOCKER and Fifth Element operation. These 2 cases are interesting because they show you how long it could take to perform an investigation. We had, for these both cases, we started the investigation on 2021. And 2 years after, in 2023, we had another wave of arrest and investigation because in between, we analyzed the data, we identified new targets, new accomplices, and we followed on the investigations. For example, RAGNAR LOCKER was involved in the attacks against critical infrastructures, health, hospitals, health targets, major companies as well. And on RAGNAR LOCKER groups was very eager to convince victims do not call the cops. They indeed considered that cops for them was a real threat, and it's a good point for us indeed. So we are assessed as rather efficient in some extent on that. The RAGNAR LOCKER groups was arrested, 5 people in France, Spain, Latvia, and Ukraine, and we take down the infra. Operation Fifth Element, that was rather the same kind of operations, and here we arrested the group, 5 in Ukraine, 5 people in Ukraine, and we provided decryption keys for victims on More Ransom as well. Here I have to thank the cooperation with Ukrainian colleagues that are very helpful, useful, efficient on providing us support, on working with us on this kind of attacks and operations. Now, let's come to the latest one, of course, Operation LOCKBIT. LOCKBIT, indeed, was identified as a global actor of the ransomware as a service ecosystem. It was one of the most prolific and harmful ransomwares, about 25% of the attacks in recent years. Since 2019, it has caused billions of euros of damage in 64 countries. Indeed, we started to work on it in 2022. This group was was important, with about 200 affiliates working in launching some attacks. The sharing of benefits was 20% for administrators, 80% for the affiliates that launch the attacks, and they use a triple extortion model. Not only companies had to pay to decrypt the data, they had to pay for the data not to be published, but there was a third dimension, because the LOCKBIT groups organize a strategy of pressure on the victims in doing DDoS attacks. That's rather particular, and here there is a trend that we have to mention. Indeed, let's go now deeper on the LOCKBIT site. Indeed, they had a whole award presentations for companies. There were a countdown that you can see on the screen. And the countdown for each targets in each company was pay the money or we will publish the data. And you can see here how it was presented to the victims that got connected to the sites. It was, in some extent, it was really professional and well-made. It was a whole business model, you know. The LockBIT groups proposed a user-friendly interface for the hackers and a set of tools allowing automated actions. That's why LockBIT was really popular amongst hackers, you know. They provide indeed an all-in-one solution. The developers created and maintained, updated the ransomware, and the affiliates executed the attacks. It was a world brand, indeed. A world brand. Yes, you can just hear if the companies needed some more time to get the money, they had also a fine, $10,000 here. Everything was organized. It was a world brand because the LockBIT administrators were eager to have a communication policy. They suggested to hackers to get tattoo of LockBIT logo. And then every hacker that got the tattoo could receive some money. He could be paid for that. That's really interesting about the state of mind of these attackers, you know. But indeed, what was the end of that? Well, the outcomes of that was the latest operations. We managed to get two people arrested. The main infrastructures was compromised. We also identify a large number of rogue accounts, and 34 servers have been disrupted. We provided also a global support to victims, case for victims, and 10 million of crypto were frozen. In conclusion, I would say that, well, first I have also to mention that most of cases, well, all cases are developed jointly also with Eurojust, that is in charge of the judicial development of these cases. And we also associate our colleagues of Interpol on some cases as well, as we are in the framework of our global international cooperation. The conclusion is that criminals are getting more and more professional, and especially with artificial intelligence, we have to consider this new trend, which is a revolution, I would say, really. Fortunately, law enforcement also develop some new approaches, new strategies to fight against the attacks. If we have good legal frameworks, if we have friendly technical standards, and good cooperation with the private sectors, we can do the coordination, we can build operational cases that will be successful. Innovation is also essential in our job. On ransomware cases, we can understand, I would insist on that, arrest successes are possible. We can succeed in taking down the infrastructures, in seizing cryptocurrencies, bringing a valuable support to victims. And there is here a virtuous, a good cycle, because the more we succeed on operational cases, the more we will collect information to open new ones and slow down the activities of attackers and ransomware groups, indeed. That would be my conclusion. I thank you very much for your attention.